The following readings are from the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. Each week, we read from both scriptures as prescribed by Yogananda ji and by his guru, Sri Yukteswar ji, who was guided by Babaji to compare the two scriptures to show the same underlying truths between them. This week's topic is titled The Mystery of Avatara or Divine Incarnation. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. The Bhagavad Gita in the 4th chapter states, as we saw last week, it says, O Bharata, whenever virtue declines and vice predominates, I incarnate on earth. Taking visible form, I come to destroy evil and re-establish virtue. What is the mystery of this divine manifestation? Great avatars such as Krishna and Jesus Christ are born as babies, even as we all are. They take human form and go through normal human experiences as they grow from childhood to adulthood. They eat, they play, they may seem to suffer sickness and disappointment like the rest of us. In what way are they different from other human beings? The important thing to understand is that even as they are like us, so are we also like them. Their realization can be ours too. They come on earth to show us our own divine potential. The difference lies not in the manner of their manifestation on earth, but in the consciousness with which they are born. All things are condensations, so to speak, of the cosmic vibration Om, described by St. John's Gospel as the Word. Most human beings, however, are unconscious of their divine origin. The avatars, on the other hand, come consciously as manifestations of that divine reality. As the Gospel says in the 1st chapter, And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
This reading is from Whispers from Eternity by Paramahansa Yogananda and is entitled Prayer Demand for Illumination. O Spirit, beloved Father, Oversoul of the universe, Spirit of spirits, Friend of friends, teach me the mystery of my existence. Teach me to worship Thee in breathlessness and in deathlessness. In the fire of devotion, burn away my ignorance. In the stillness of my soul, come, Spirit, come. Possess me and teach me to feel Thy immortal presence in and around me. Come, Spirit, come. Come, Spirit, come. This subject of the mystery of Avatara, the descent of God into this world and into our lives, is really a deep and fascinating one, and it's extremely important and relevant at all stages on the path. Prasanna was saying in the reading that as we read last week, but last week we didn't read, we had Jyotishji and Deviji, but that reading was essentially saying that God does come down, and that when these divine souls come, that they are manifestations of God. Yes, I'm nodding to you. Hello, nice to see you. And so we didn't read it, and you could say, well, the teaching is incomplete, and can you please, start from last chapter, even from the beginning of the book. The nice thing is these readings repeat every year, and so over the time we collect them all if there's been a gap in one. But the wonderful thing, too, in India is we don't really have to. Have you ever heard, O Bharata, when virtue declines and vice predominates? Has anyone ever heard that before? And it's brand new, It's sort of like that is the most oft-quoted stanza of the Bhagavad Gita here. And so we have this sense that, yes, God does come. And this teaching, though, is another aspect of that that's just as important, as Swamiji said, even though they are like us. And let's first understand that. What does it mean that they are like us? Well, on one level, you don't see that Krishna never ate. He never, did anything. He was always sort of floating above the ground about 6 feet, just sort of zapping everybody with divine blasts. Some people didn't even recognize him as a divine incarnation. It's written in the stories that even his enemies recognized him. But I think, remember, these stories were written after. And so once it's sort of agreed that he was a divine incarnation, we can go back and even rewrite the stories to support that. But there would be people who would just pass him on the street probably and not know. I don't know how, but still, you can imagine that there are many, many saints. And, does everybody recognize them? We've had many, if not avatars, certainly saints here and elsewhere. And, did the postman recognize him? Did their neighbors recognize them? We've been very lucky, our neighbors. I'm not saying we have saints here and the neighbors recognize them, but I am saying the neighbors are very friendly and supportive, which is not common. And so it's very nice to have that when we have this whole thing going on here with people coming to meditate. They're very glad, and so we're very grateful. Also, I think probably on one level the people around the saints do recognize them. There was a man who was working at a gas station right near Ananda village, and somebody came there, or maybe it wasn't near Ananda village, I can't remember. Anyway, this man was always grumpy, and whenever our friend Anantaji, many of you know him, Nayaswami Ananta, would bring his car there, the man would just... And, that was the extent of their conversation. And then one day, the man was there and he saw on Anantaji's truck, he saw this dashboard, he saw a photo of Master. And he said, "You know him?" And Anantaji said, "I know him. You know him?" and then he said, "Where is he? Where is he now?" And Anantaji said, "Well, he passed away in 1952. The man started to cry. And he said, "I had a gas station at the bottom of Mount Washington, which is where Yoganandaji lived. And he would bring his car there, and he would get his tank filled there. And I've never, seen such a beautiful face. And it was just so sad that he was gone." So I think there is that on one level that people do recognize or can recognize. But so we have to remember that these avatars, these great saints, there's a distinction between them, but that's not my point today, that they live lives like ours, first of all, so that we can relate to them. If Krishna said, "By the way, when I was growing up, they said everyone has to take 12 standard exams except you because you are Krishna, so you pass." And I automatically, the first job I applied for was CEO of the universe, and they just gave it to me. And, we'd say, "Wow," and we would worship at his feet. Master said that. If God just sent a divine robot down to earth to come and to bless everyone, then it would have no meaning for us because there would nothing we could relate to. We're not divine robots, and so we need to understand in a human way. We see this in the same way in Autobiography of a Yogi. Master writes the book in such a way that we can relate to his life's experiences, at least his outer life experiences, the visions and the different things he had, we can be inspired by. And maybe there is a deeper part of us that can relate to it, that feels, yes, I know this must be true, whether I've experienced or not. Or maybe I experienced something like it, and this is much more of that. So even in that way, we can relate. But even his outer life, his as he describes it, his struggles with college and all of these things, that his heart just wasn't into it. If anybody struggled with exams and so on, they would just, relate to what he shared. Even when I met Swamiji, he said to me, he was asking me about my education, and then he said, I never finished college. I had 6 months left to go, and I left. And he said, when Master found that out, he said, "Why does Divine Mother do this to me?" He said, because I had to not only finish college, but he had to get the BA and do all of these things, and he said, and here you didn't even have to. So the thing then is that we need stories and examples that we can relate to. And it's more than that. It's not just that the great masters, they say, okay, go through and do all the things that the little ant people do, and just, look like you're sweating a little bit, even though we know it's all a joke. No, it's not that way. In fact, it's said very well in the Bible. Jesus said, whoever overcomes, meaning this delusion, even as I overcame. That these masters had previous lives where they achieved spiritual enlightenment for the first time. You see, not everyone necessarily thinks of that, even with Krishna or with Rama and so on, but it's true that they are incarnations of God, yes, but they began as people like us, who achieved first Nirvikalpa Samadhi to be Jivan Muktas, and then beyond that to be Param Muktas. If you've ever heard these words, I won't describe them right now, but I saw a confused look from Napoleon, and I know he knows these words, so that's why. In other words, once you graduate twice, then you can serve as an incarnation of God. The distinction is not a strong one in the sense that both are one with God, but one who has overcome all past karma, which is what this paramukta is, can fully channel the divine power to many people, to the whole world. When they come to the earth as an avatar, they come to change the world on a global level, you could say, or at least a whole sort of part of the world, but potentially all the world. Whereas an enlightened master who still has this past karma to work out, when they come, they work with a smaller group of people that way. They're not as fully open of a channel, meaning they don't have that mission yet, perhaps in time. But many saints and masters, when they receive that level of enlightenment, don't bother coming back. They sort of say Om from afar, and I'm sure it helps. But there are a very few that come and take the time to help us all. Out of love. It's God's love. And you could say, well, why don't so many of them come? Well, they also come according to our interest. And so whenever virtue declines and vice predominates, I incarnate myself on earth. Why? Because God says, we better do something because this planet's about to just explode. So we want to keep it going. So, Yogananda, could you sort of go and clean it up? It's not like that. It's that the cries of the virtuous, and remember, everyone on one level has a good heart. Everyone, even the vice, that thing. In other words, people are suffering. They're saying, we need help. And maybe one way I can ease my suffering is by taking out my suffering on other people, or taking from them to ease my suffering. It doesn't work. But it's the same motivation. I want to get away from pain, and I want happiness. I want to avoid suffering, and I want happiness. And so, in response to that cry, that prayer, that wish, God comes to the earth. But we can see that in our own lives. Haven't we experienced that on one level? We were looking for answers, we were looking for truth, we were looking for peace, and we found these teachings. We found Autobiography of a Yogi, we found meditation. I think we can probably all remember one of our first contacts with Master in this life, through the book, through classes here, through something you heard from a friend. That feeling of, there's something here Maybe there's something here for me. Maybe there's something that can answer these questions that don't seem to have answers. Even if we get philosophical answers, again, what do they mean to us? We have to feel them. We have to find our home, our spiritual home. Why? Because we're looking for a spiritual home. Does that mean everyone is looking for a spiritual home? I would say yes, philosophically. Everyone is looking for a feeling of home, a feeling of comfort, a feeling of belonging. But very few people are looking for that in God. And as I was saying 2 weeks ago, it's fine. They'll come in their own time. And, not to feel in any way separate like that. But if we ever wonder, again, as this one person asked me, as I related 2 weeks ago, so many people will come to T Nagar for shopping, but they won't necessarily come to CIT Nagar for meditation. I had the same question of Swami Kriyananda in a different way. I said, did Yogananda Ji envision that everyone who reads Autobiography of a Yogi would then learn Kriya? And he said, no, very few people want God. And if you think about it, it's surprising. Very few people want God, sure, but even very few people who read Autobiography of a Yogi. I didn't say, is anyone who saw, the latest, Bang 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 movie that came out, are they all going to take Kriya Yoga? It was, these are among readers of the Autobiography of a Yogi. I said Bang 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 because I was thinking of the name of the actor and decided I didn't want to blame the poor fellow for being the opposite of Autobiography of a Yogi. But the thing is that even among readers of the book, which is many, how many will want to say, yes, I want to make this real in my life and learn Kriya? So in other words, if we have, we should celebrate. And if we find anyone who's interested, we should help them. But first, see that they're interested. If they're not interested, give them time. Give them energy in other ways. We want to share, but we want to share in a way that can be received, that will be appreciated, or at least appropriate. Maybe not appreciated, but appropriate. And so this is how, again, the masters are like us in that they have worked through what we have worked through in the past. We didn't know them then. Books weren't written about them then. But they have overcome, and then they are channels of God. The same journey that we're taking from God and back to Him, they have taken as well. And so it's hinted. Krishna says, you and I have lived many times, Arjuna. I remember all my past lives, but you don't. But he doesn't say, I remember when I was, struggling to achieve liberation for the first time. He doesn't go on there. But Jesus does when he says, even as I overcame. It's really quite powerful. But the other side of it, which is this reading, is that we are also like them, that therefore we have that same divine potential. And so that's what we're working towards. And we should think of that, think of the masters and the saints as close, as caring for us, as interested, rather than, oh my gosh, they're way up there and they're on the 10th floor and you have to enter a security code in the elevator even to get there, and I am just in the basement. It's just not that way. Master said to one of his disciples, remember, Jesus loves you just as much as he loves me. No, I'm sorry. He said God loves you just as much as he loves me and as much as he loves Jesus. That he loves us all equally in that way, which is to say equally dearly. Not equally like, look, there's a few billion of them, and so, you get a billionth of my love and it's all equal. It's not that. It's saying equally precious, equally dear. Okay? So I was thinking, could I have the words to the song, What is Love? Does anyone have them here? Bala? Yeah, no, you can bring it. Thank you. I was thinking about that in terms of our need to understand these teachings. I was introducing this song and how Swami Kriyananda came to write it. What is love? Is it only ours, or does love whisper in the flowers? Surely we, children of this world, could not love by our own powers. So to understand that there is a higher power, and we say, for someone who perhaps is closed to that idea, it does make you kind of wonder, like, maybe. But for us also to remember that higher power is with us constantly. Not just the moment we became spiritual. When you become spiritual, so to speak, which is to say you reawaken to these truths, there's a bit of a honeymoon period where everything is just so wonderful, and it's before the first test comes. And so all we get is this big relief. I don't mean that later we go, yeah, I remember when I used to be positive. No. Sometimes people mean that, and I don't mean that, and don't ever say that or think it or listen to it, because that's just darkness. And so, again, it's a fine line. What I'm saying is we have the innocence before the first test comes and gets us. And so then we have, over time, a deeper joy because we discover, even through such a big test, still my sadhana works, still kriya works, still the center is there for me, still I can read autobiography and get inspiration. And so through not just happy times, but also storms, I now have a guide, I now have a friend, I now have someone to pray to, and so on. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? Okay. What is joy? Is it just a dream? Or does joy laugh in every stream? And we can say, oh, it's nice, the streams, when the chuckling, the water sometimes is described as babbling or chuckling or laughing, because it's got almost the sound of laughter in a way, this gurgling water. But we have to remember that for ourselves, because we may find sometimes that, okay, in this environment, in this situation, I'm with spiritual people and I feel it and I enjoy it. But then, let's say afterwards, I'm in other environments and I feel differently. And I can't necessarily walk around saying, what is your favorite chakra sound? Bumblebee, and, this sort of... My favorite sound would be if you stop talking. That's what you probably get in response. So then we can develop this unnecessary thought of separation, that this environment or these people I love spending time with, and the others I don't mind it, but I kind of have to, or I kind of have to hide a part of myself. Honestly, that's true. We do have to hide a part of ourselves for their sake. As Master writes in Autobiography of a Yogi, saints' seclusion is not for their own convenience, but for the convenience of other people who will get shaken up too much if they're, with someone like that. So there is an element that we have to hide, which is to say we have to be appropriate. Swamiji said this too. On the spiritual path, it can be... kind of a downer when you're spending time with people, also just relaxing and having fun. But everything has to be at the highest level of philosophy. Prasanna, Swamiji didn't give this example, but Prasanna did, that, someone might say, oh, isn't that a beautiful sunset with the pretty colored lights? And the other person said, the only lights I'm interested in are the lights of the chakras. And it's just not natural. It's not human. You can see the lights of the chakras in the sunset then. In other words, you think God makes all this beautiful thing and we just kind of say, no, Vendam, I only look inside. If that works, fine. But we find that the masters who do that also enjoy outwardly too. You see, that's why we need them. This is one of my points, that we need these divine incarnations to make it real for us, to make God real for us, to help us to know what to look up to, how to guide ourselves, who to emulate, and how to. That's why we have the masters generally, and why we have our guru, because we can then follow in his footsteps. We can study his life and say, how should I react? This was one thing Swamiji said that impressed him most of all when he first read Autobiography of a Yogi, was Master's completely perfect and appropriate response to every situation. He handled everything perfectly. And Swamiji went on. He said later he noticed that when Master would speak to people, he would say things gently, in many cases, in such a way that the person would remain open to him. Because you know how it is. You get one cutting word from someone, especially if you sort of first meet them, and after a few weeks or something, there's, what are you doing here? I remember I asked someone, your husband, they work together. I said, your husband sent me an email about something that he wanted me to do, and I'm going to look into it. And she said, if he sent you the email, probably better to speak to him about it. And this was at Ananda village, and I was newly returned to Ananda village from Ananda, India, and so I was still kind of getting used to America again. And also I was kind of surprised because people don't normally talk like that, as you can probably imagine. She was somewhat new, and I learned later she had a migraine headache, which she hadn't told me about, and that was before I walked in. She had the headache, just to clarify. And so I didn't react at all, and it wasn't out of like, I will be appropriate in my spine. I was surprised, and so that's really all it was. I just, hey, I just was surprised. Then I withdrew and said, okay, well, what is it that you would like to discuss? Because she had called me there because she had some problem, some computer problem. And then I helped her, and then I went on. And then later she came to my desk and said, I'm so sorry for the way I spoke. I hate it when I do that. I had this headache, and it wasn't your fault at all, and so on. And I say, thank you for your apology. No, I said, I understand. I get those headaches too, And it's just that it's so important too. In other words, the other aspect of that is that people often know when they've done wrong. And if you give them the space, many people will approach you later and say, I'm sorry. But if you say, well, you know what, now that you mention it, I wanted to say, and as soon as you throw fire back, see, then you have also made a mistake, and then they don't feel guilty anymore. See, I was bad and you were bad, and so I don't have to say sorry. And so someone said Swamiji would repeat that advice too. Someone told a friend of his, actually the mother-in-law told the daughter-in-law, she said, I know my son much better than you do, and he will fly off the handle. He will be impatient and angry. And if you do not react and you stay calm, then later he will come to you and he will apologize. But if you react, forget it. You'll just never get anywhere. And so Swamiji's friend, this new bride, she was not an old bride at that time, but she just said she always got everything she wanted because whenever he asked and he would yell, she wouldn't say anything, and then later he would apologize and then want to give her whatever it was that she had asked for. And so you have to know how to handle certain people. Some people you can say, that's not fair, that hurts my feelings. And the person, okay, sorry, I don't want to hurt your feelings. So you can have a discussion, but you have to see if you can or not, and then be appropriate. You could say, yes, okay, I can be appropriate, but what about them? And that's not how the game is played. That's not how it works. How do you know? Because we've all tried it. Okay, so do what works. Now, for us, what is joy? Is it just a dream? Does joy laugh in every stream? We have to remember that behind every experience, suppose we're in some kind of desert where no one is interested in God. Try to find God in that. Try to find God laughing in every stream in your life. Now, right now. Not just, okay, this is kind of what I have to endure until I can get back to my meditation room. Try to see. God is everywhere. How is he in this situation? What is he trying to teach me through this? He's probably not, if you're dealing with difficult people, he's probably not teaching you how to be able to convert them all into Kriya Yogis. He's probably not trying to teach you how to cheer them all up and to get them to all finally approve of what you're doing. Or if so, that may be a long road. And usually people only come to approve, if they've initially disapproved, when they see you passing through a very difficult thing. I had a relative who was extremely against all the spiritual things, and then I was in graduate school, I got a call that a friend of mine was close to dying, which I knew, meaning she had been ill for some time. I flew to the place where she was to see her, but she had already died by the time I got there. So it was too bad on one level that I missed her. And then this relative came and picked me up, because I had gone from the airport to the place. And so then he picked me up to bring me home. And he said, so, as usual. And then he said, and so how is your friend? And I said, she passed away before I got there, an hour before I arrived. And he was shocked, and he started shaking a little bit. And I said, well, while you're driving, please try to not get too distracted, unless we also both die before we get home. And then he said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I said, I had basically said goodbye to her over the phone, and I had expressed how much I appreciated our friendship and so on. So I would have liked to have seen her, but if I didn't, I still feel that peace of having been able to say what I needed to say, and she said too, and received it, and so on. And he said, I am impressed. And, that he never said that about anything related to this. But he just said, I could not imagine going through that. That's terrifying to me. So again, he was impressed, and it was lovely for one day. And then the next day we went back to the old layout, the old routine again. So even then, if you get a parting in the clouds, it's nice. But then they come back together. So it's fine. Remember, people are always taking in your presence, the things you're doing, whether you say it or not, and better if you don't say. They can feel it. Some people feel frustrated. They feel challenged if you say, I meditate, because they say, I know I should too, but I don't want to. And so I don't like that you do, because you're always reminding me that I really ought to, or I ought to care. And if somebody really doesn't know or care, they go, great, you meditate, that's fine. I just won a chapati eating contest. And, that's what I do. And, so then it doesn't matter, But if somebody feels a little, criticized, basically, that you're trying to be better than me and I don't like it because it makes me feel lesser than you. That's another thing that happens sometimes. So don't. But look for God in all those things. God is probably not, as I said, trying to teach us to convert everybody. What he's teaching us is to be calm in every circumstance, to be patient with difficult people. And not because we have such bad karma that is what has made all of this, because we had done that to other people. Maybe, but who cares? If that were really true, that in the last life you were so bad, you would not be on the spiritual path now. You can't make a leap that big. And so it's more just that, how can I get calm? And also, what is it in me that's so upset? One thing that's easily true, we get this question all the time from devotees, is basically, if they had a difficult family life growing up, why? Why did I have such a difficult family life? Like, what did I do to deserve it? The parents are the ones who are supposed to protect you and take care of you, like that's the contract and the law, and it was not honored. I signed it by appearing, and, but they didn't follow it, and so they should be arrested. And there's this deep sense of it is unfair. And it is unfair on one level. It's no one to say, no, it's actually fair. No, it's not. But we also have to understand then, okay, given that this has happened, because it has, then what can I do to go forward now? What can I do to rebuild my life now? Or what was I needing to learn in that situation? That nobody is any darn good. No, that's not the lesson that we're supposed to learn. It's just that God, to look for God. Some sort of intuitive reader told me, yeah, I know you had a hard time, but you wouldn't be doing what you're doing if you hadn't gone through that. And there's no way to know. But I do have to admit that difficulties I went through made me ask, is there something better? Where is love? Where is joy? Where is friendship? And my parents were fine. I don't mean it like that. But still, even a little suffering, a little misunderstanding can reawaken us to saying, I want something better. And where is it? And if that's what, for example, puts us on the path, if that's what motivates us to practice Kriya, Can we say that that's been such a hardship? I mean, is it a blessing also? That it made us go in the right way? Often we get driven to the truth by attraction from pain. We get attraction from pain. That's not a phrase many people use because it's a weird one and a wrong one. Attraction from joy. We're attracted to the spiritual path, but we're also chased by pain from behind. It's both. You see, and so we if we have those pains and they pushed us forward as much as the joy attracted us, can we even say that they were such bad things? Was it bad karma if it turned me to God? Anything that turns you to God has to be good karma by definition. Not pleasant karma necessarily, but certainly beneficial. Isn't it true? And so to keep that in mind, that in difficult situations, my goal is first to try to become calm. That's step one. Not to understand, not to find the perfect thing to say back, but to just be calm first. Calm and centered. And how do I get there? First, you get there by faking it. Kind of like I did when that person was like, and I just was surprised. It reminds me of another time. You might think, gosh, no wonder this guy doesn't get along with anybody. But I had this habit of my first job at Ananda, I would walk up to whenever my boss was always busy, and so whenever I saw my boss, I had questions that needed answering for me to do my job. I'd see my boss and I'd walk right up to her and I'd say, hi, what do you want about this? And so after some time of that, when I walked up to the person at the boss and said, I have this question, she said, Dharmarajan, you always have the worst timing. And I paused in surprise, and I said, always? Because, I had studied mathematics, and I was thinking, I always have the worst timing. Like, think about the probability of that. Every time you bring something up, it's exactly at the worst timing. Like, if you could predict that, if you could flip it around, you could predict the stock market, when it's going to go. Imagine the gift I must have to every time get it at the worst timing. Not even like it's pretty bad timing, but if you'd waited an hour, it would have been worse. No, every time. I'm serious, this is what was going through my head, just kind of. And I said, always? Every time, the worst time? She said, I'm exaggerating. And so, but then I didn't walk away saying, no. I thought about it. I thought, why would she think that every time I have the worst timing? And I realized that whenever I saw her, I saw my chance because I needed an answer. Excuse me, But I never stopped to look first. Was she in a conversation with someone else? Did she have a worried look on her face? Did I think that this is lunchtime and she's just finished this big whatever morning and she's going to go into lunch? I didn't assess the situation before pouncing. And so I learned to stop and look before just charging. And these are the things young people learn when they're first, working and so on. And so anyway, I got something out of it. But again, in the beginning, I just faked it. Oh. So that's how our first step with calmness in a difficult situation is to fake it, which is usually through being quiet. But how do we really achieve that calmness? Through Kriya. Through these teachings. We have to get back to the truth. We have to get back to love. We have to get back to joy. And we have to feel that support that we may not be feeling outwardly in that situation, and then to feed that need to be understood, to soothe the hurt of being misunderstood. So Kriya is the most effective, I can say. I've tried so many things, and many other things help, but try Kriya first, or whatever meditation technique you have, because it just the most quickly and without a big analysis going on. That, let's see, probably in their last life they murdered people. So in this life, if they just shout, I should consider myself lucky. It's not enough. Because then you start saying, why am I stuck in this situation in the first place? So, no. So as I say, just meditate. And the peace comes back without explanation, without understanding. So let us remember that the masters are inviting us to join them. The guru's job, as Master said, is to make you what he is. He wants to bring us to that level. That's where we're going. And as Swamiji said, we should identify ourselves with our aspirations, not with our present realities. In other words, if you want to be good, identify yourself with I want to be good, meaning I want to be in God, rather than I have so far to go, let me tell you. You know, that we don't worry about where you are, but where you're going. Think about that as your reality. And it was sweet because Swamiji always looked at us that way. You could feel it. He was always looking to someone's higher potential. He always sort of looked at you with a kindly light, like, you know, you're doing well, and so on. It was so encouraging. And he said that, I address myself to people's higher selves, he said, when I speak to them. And you could feel that. You kind of just felt lifted up by him. And so I wanted to end with this thought came up, this question came up. How can I relate it? Well, one thing we've been talking about how the masters have overcome through many incarnations to achieve their present state, how we also are moving through many incarnations towards our freedom in God. And one question that comes up that we never really address anywhere is, what about when we lose loved ones to death? And Master said that, first of all, one reason, he said the secrecy around life and death is one of the greatest cosmic secrets that God keeps. He said because if we could find or did know about our loved ones from the past, in the next life we wouldn't bother loving the people that we're with then. I mean, imagine it, just saying, who are you all? You're a bunch of strangers. I have my real mom from, Egypt and so on. And it's just like, well, a lot of good that's going to do you. I mean, how are you going to get there at 2 years old, book a flight? So, but then sometimes people will ask, how can I contact my dear ones who have departed? And Master, in his, I think it might be his super advanced cosmic science course, that literally is one of the titles. I think it's from that one. He gives, anyway, I'm going to read to you something because I had to send this to someone in response to a question, but I wanted to share it with you all because it's just something that comes up and but doesn't always come up in a situation like this in satsang. Master said, every night with closed eyes, concentrate in the Christ center or the astral broadcasting microphone of the spiritual eye and broadcast your goodwill to your departed ones by mentally saying, resurrect and be quickened in God. They will get your message. Then sit in silence and try to feel their love, and when you feel exhilarated, know that they have answered you. And keep in mind, you can use this with Master and Swamiji too. I mean, you can, Master said this in another context, that basically you can pray going to sleep, saying, Master, come to me in a dream. I want to see you in a dream. Come to me in a dream. And if he doesn't come in a dream, try it again and again, and until it works. I've tried it, and other people have tried it, and it does work. You just keep at it. So as opposed to just relatives. Someone asked, can souls be contacted if they leave the astral plane and are reborn on Earth? I mean, think about it. You're praying for somebody who, if it is a relative or a friend who passed away, and you're praying to see them, but they've reincarnated, well, then what happens? I mean, do you get like a busy signal or something? Or does this 5-year-old answer and go, eh? So it's a good question. And Master said, yes. Even if some of your dead ones have reincarnated by the above process, you can signal to their ever-awake astral bodies and receive an answer in the form of a dream in sleep or a vision in meditation. Isn't that amazing? Their ever-awake astral bodies, I mean, they're on Earth, but their astral body will be able to receive it because the astral body knows. Would you like me to explain that? I would like to be able to explain that. I can't. Thus, by finding friends in this life and allowing them and following them up in the astral sphere after death, you will learn the mystery of life after death. Then you will know that death separated your loved ones from you, so that you might love not only them and exclude all your other human brothers, but that you might give your love to all the people in all incarnations. Thus, when your heart becomes big enough to love all, you will then know the Father who loves all his children alike, and, knowing him, you will know all your many parents and friends that you loved before. With that intense love, you will learn to love all your animate and inanimate brothers as your brothers and children of your one ever kind, ever mysterious Father God. Note well, besides the above methods, there are other ways of contacting departed souls. And he already mentioned earlier, we're talking about good souls, people you know. Don't try to contact random spirits and so on. It's completely not only useless, but unsafe. Do not think constantly about a departed soul unless you know that he is good, and unless you feel an undying desire to reach him. If time cannot make you forget a departed friend, then try to contact him. A continuous desire to know about a departed soul is the best astral broadcasting that you can send forth. If day and night you miss a dear friend, then you will have a sort of longing, a soothing presence around your heart. This will indicate to you that this friendly soul is trying to get in touch with you through your feeling, but he cannot materialize himself because of your constant mental restlessness. And this happens sometimes. You'll find that when somebody passes, their husband or wife might be in grief, but like someone else might get a dream and say, please say to my wife that I'm okay, that everything's fine. It's not a direct relation. And one explanation could be this, that through the pain, it's hard for the message to get through. So they have to find someone else who's able to receive it. If you concentrate upon this feeling that your friend is present, doing this for several minutes just before falling asleep, then that friend will appear to you in a dream. This is the thing I meant about you can apply that to Master and Swamiji. If you carry the feeling of the presence of your departed friend and then try to concentrate with closed eyes upon the spot between the eyebrows and visualize him, he will appear to you after some time. It may take months or even years, but if you are patient and keep on ever increasing the depth of the astral call of meditation, you will succeed. Even if a departed soul is reborn, the superconsciousness of his astral body will receive the broadcastings of a friend of a former life who is wishing to contact him. In that case, the astral body of this reincarnated soul, during the conscious, subconscious, or superconscious state, can project himself as a feeling presence in the conscious state, or as a dream image in the subconscious state, or as a vision in the superconscious state of the friend desiring to make the contact. God bless you.